But what type of vaccinations do you think you need for a Penn Station bathroom? Do you think a booster would be enough? What do you think would do?
Yeah, you definitely need your tetanus shot. That's for damn sure.
I know the 10 years.
Yeah, it's all right, Eric. They have the COVID vax. That's all that matters. You know? They're safe.
They're clean, right? They're clean. They're good to go.
And here's the other thing that, here's the other thing, and people point out on the chat. It's like there's a bunch of questions here because there are some little nuances here that matter as it relates to department discipline. A crime's a crime. I don't care if you do it in a public bathroom or whatever. If it's accessible to the public and you do it in public, if one guy gets arrested for it, then you should get arrested for it, right? That is the basis of our law. Justice is supposed to be blind, right? It even goes back as far as into the Bible. Doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor, you get the same amount of justice, right? It's literally biblical what we've written into law, and we're perverting that, So when it comes criminally, that's getting played with. But here's where it matters departmentally too. On top of it, was this individual on duty? Was he on overtime? Right? And those are two big questions. Because one, if he was on duty, that it should be 100% immediate termination. And two, if he was on overtime, without a doubt, I mean, he should have to pay that money back as well. Like, what were you doing? Now all his overtime should be audited. And honestly, all of the discipline that he's issued to police officers, that should also be audited. Because how could you trust this person that's scamming on overtime, involved in sexual rendezvous while they're on duty and while they're on overtime? Now, we don't know if he's off duty and we don't know if he's on duty. And again, that is the result of the least transparent administration that New York City has had in the modern age. The Eric Adams administration, the NYPD being run under Jessica Tisch, is the least transparent version of the NYPD we've ever seen. And Ray Kelly's police department was notorious for not being transparent. They were way more transparent. Discipline was way more effective under Ray Kelly than it is currently. Jessica Tisch does not run the New York City Police Department. That is a sham to get her elected in years down the road. Eric Adams runs the police department. They're covering up absolutely every piece of corruption that's fallen out. I don't know. If I'm a betting man, I'm betting he was on duty. I'm betting possibly he was on overtime.
There goes his
That's a valid question, John. I'll tell you why. Because the rumor is he works for some inspections unit attached to Chief of Department's office. And, if you know anything about inspections, usually these guys they have, I don't think they have steady tours. I think they have tours that they have to inspect a certain amount of guys on. I was never a supervisor, so I'm just telling you from the experience of a cop. So these guys have a certain amount of tours that they have to cover every week and scratch guys. Scratch, for those of you who don't know, means they show up and they scratch their memo book, or they scan their phone, as it is now in the modern NYPD, which means they basically showed up and make sure that cop was doing what he was supposed to do, or he was on post, or he had the necessary tools or paperwork on patrol, right? So chances are this guy had his own department vehicle, and he had, being from the Chief of Department's office, he probably had a lot more freedom than, say, a precinct integrity control officer who's attached to a precinct, and even they have a lot of freedom to, So that's a valid question, whether this went on while he was actually on duty. I said many times before, when I got into Intel, the inspector who brought me there told me about all the freedom that's in Intel, and it's true. In these units, you have a lot of freedom to go about the city, and you can finagle a lot of what you're doing. I'm going to so and so precinct because I want to talk to the FIO, And in this case, I think this sergeant has a lot of those similar type of freedom, you know. So asking whether this occurred on duty or on overtime is a very valid question. And again, it could be one of the reasons why they want to bury this, because if you look into it, it leads back to further corruption. And the last thing they would want is another overtime scandal on top of a sexual scandal coming out of chief of department's office again. So and by the way, I think if we're getting a lot of critics who are calling us homophobic or trying to say that, you know, we're criticizing the boots on the ground, this has been a tactic of 1PP, and in particular Chell and Cass, more so Chell. It's to displace criticism of 1PP onto our criticism of 1PP leadership with criticism of cops on the ground. And we've said time and time that we're criticizing the leadership because they're setting the table for policy and for the standards of conduct in the department. And if we're getting that pushback, I'm pretty sure that pushback is coming from 1PP and not some random cops who just happen to jump on and want to call us that.
You know what's interesting about this? This sergeant, for our active and retired members, they're already aware he's in the inspections unit. For anyone who's outside the NYPD and another law enforcement agency, I'm sure you have something similar where they inspect the internal foundation of the job, right? Not external factors. They check, make sure cops, their uniform, their appearance, things like that. But what I find interesting about the inspections unit, and over the years, especially even when I was working, you guys were working, it was always these like strange people in this unit. Like I remember Inspector Solano. I think everyone knows who that guy is. He was in charge of inspections unit for housing, and this guy was just a complete nut job. Like, who's inspecting this guy? Nothing he did had like significance and purpose. Like to have an interaction with a member of the service and take their memo book back when it was on the phone, the actual book, and spend an hour going through pages. And all that memo book is your notes as a police officer with a chronological timeline just to keep, it's kind of like so you could assimilate what your day is like, just to show chronologically what you did. But he would go through this thing like it was a Bible. And there was a lot of rumors that he avoided going to gun runs and violent calls. We always had these strange people. I mean, there was something wrong. Something demented about this man, that you're making over $200,000 a year as an inspector, and this is what you're doing. And I mean, this guy was just a complete loser. And the fact that, former Chief Joanne Jaffe, which is another crazy maniac, that you had this guy heading your unit. I mean, it had no purpose. If it's to make the cops better and have a better performance and better uniform presence, fine. But to sit there and spend an hour going through a memo book, and most of the time, including myself, you would have to go do your job and say, hey, and come back a half hour later, and this guy would still be going through your book. There's always strange people in this unit. It's and yet they're the ones inspecting everyone else. Who's inspecting them? I mean, it's as clear as day. Maybe the NYPD should not just be cleaning up bathrooms, but they need to start cleaning house. And we need to get rid of this three-tiered system. This three-tiered system is so prevalent right now. We talk about it all the time. General population has a different weight of the administrative infractions in policy and even the law in comparison to Tier 1. Tier 1 is untouchable. Who is Tier 1? That's your upper echelon of the NYPD. Who's Tier 2? Tier 2 is someone like this, Sergeant Michael Merritt, who's in a unit at the chief of department, who gets favoritism, part of that circle of nepotism, and this was getting swept under the rug. And this encompasses many factors, because there's scandal after scandal right now at the NYPD. It encompasses exactly what John said. Was he on overtime? Because that's a scandal going on in the NYPD. Was he on duty? Right? Is it another on duty? Would you call this on duty booty? I mean, they're not exactly getting booty, but what they're doing, it's most likely on duty, right? Isn't that he's probably doing inspections while he's doing this? I mean, was he on overtime? Another scandal. So it's scandal after scandal, and this weaves into everything. And it shows, where is it coming from? The top. And you know what? To your point, Marlon, do we criticize the rank and file? Not as a whole, but will we give a fair assessment when someone's out of line? Absolutely. And this sergeant is completely out of line, and I consider him rank and file. But why is he out of line? Because he's protected by this tier system. So yes, we should knock him, because if it was someone from general population, they would be suspended immediately and arrested and charged. So complete different comparison.
Yeah. Can you imagine how many of these incidents have occurred and have been swept under the rug? Yeah.
Yeah, if the walls could talk in One Police Plaza and on Pearl Street on the casting couches, on the large, expensive casting couches that we have throughout offices, the deputy mayor and all these other offices, yeah. If the walls could only talk, yeah, God only knows what the hell's going on, honestly. Because just to imagine the horrible things that we're reading about in the paper, the conduct unbecoming, and what that effect has had actually on the rank and file, how people look at the New York City Police Department. I mean, again, these are the people leading the New York City Police Department. These are the people in charge of integrity, in charge of discipline. And yeah, I think, and you're right. I think socially awkward people have always went more towards that role. There were, to be fair, like I know some people that just didn't give a crap and they went to inspections to get overtime towards the end of their career, and they really, all they did is just investigate the cases they had. They weren't driving around bothering you. But there are certain guys that take that position and there's something seriously wrong with them. I've ran into duty captains as a cop, as a sergeant, and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? Like the shoe flies. And I'm like, there's something seriously wrong with this guy. Like, I don't know what the hell's wrong. And same thing for inspections. I remember as a young sergeant, I'm like on a job and my driver's like, yo, Sarge, that guy over there, he's an inspection sergeant. He GO'd me. And he's watching us on the corner. So I was like, watch this. So I'm like talking to the complainant and I just stop in my tracks and I beeline right for the guy. The guy that I think is the inspection sergeant. He's like across the street. I just beeline towards him, like where he wasn't expecting it. He freaks out and he runs. He literally runs away. And I was like, oh yeah, 100%. That was inspections. And then I seen him like 2 weeks later, and I'm like, yo, bro, you're a sergeant? And he's like, yeah. I was like, why'd you run? Why'd you run the other day? You were like a creep the other day. I didn't know who you are. I was coming over to ID you to make sure you were right. You looked like you needed something. And he goes, no, I didn't run. He was like, I was going to come over. I was like, oh, were you? I was like, that. He literally, I just beeline towards him, like across the thing. And I started like moving. He ran. He literally ran.
You've just watched a clip from our live episode. Click the description to watch the full episode. Like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this.